A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. I am Nor-ain Salik, and now I am going to discuss about the 7 domains of NCBTS. So ano ba yung tinatawag na NCBTS or National Competency Based Teacher Standards? So according to the framework, this will allow teachers to self-assess their own performance against the competency standards in order to identify areas of strength as well as areas that need to develop further in order for them to function more effectively as facilitator of learning. So itong NCBTS ay nakakatulong sa mga teacher na self-assess nila ang kanilang performance bilang isang guro. Ma-identify nila ang kanilang mga kakayahan as well as yung mga kailangan nilang i-develop or i-improve sa kanilang pagtuturo to make their teaching more effectively. We have 7 domains of NCBTS. Ang Domain 1 ay Social Regards for Learning. Ang Domain 7, Personal Growth and Professional Development. So itong dalawang domain, Domain 1 and Domain 7, referring to the teacher as learner. Bakit? Dahil ang Domain 1, as a teacher, kailangan mong maging role model ng iyong estudyante. Teacher serve of all positives, values, and action. Domain 7, as a professional, kailangan continuous lang yung learning mo to improve your profession. So, ang Domain 1 and Domain 7, rini-refers siya sa teacher as learner dahil sa teacher makikita yung improvement or development. Domain 2, the learning environment. 3, the diversity of learners. 4, curriculum. 5, planning, assessing, and reporting. And 6, community linkage. So itong middle domain, Domain 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, rini-refer naman siya as the teacher as facilitator of learning dahil ang teacher ang nagfa-facilitate or nagpa-plan sa kung paano mag-improve or matuto ang kaniyang mga estudyante at kung paano maging epektibo ang kaniyang mga techniques na gagawin. Ang middle domains, dinivide siya into 2 subcategories which is Domain 2, 3, 4, and Domain 5 and 6. Ang first categories represent the specific teacher's practices related to the technical aspects of the teaching learning processes. In short, teaching strategies or yung mga strategies ng mga teacher para mapadali ang kanilang pagtuturo at the same time, mapadali na din yung pagkatuto ng kanilang mga estudyante. And the second categories represent the specific teacher practices that embed the learning processes in appropriate context. So, ang example nito, yung mga activities na ginagawa natin sa loob at labas ng school. Ang next, isa-isahin natin yung 7 domains, bibigyan natin ng definition. Ang first domain, social regard for learning. The domain of social regard for learning focuses on the ideal that teachers serve as positive and powerful role models of the values of the pursuit of learning and of the efforts to learn, and that the teacher's actions, statements, and different types of social interaction with students exemplify this ideal. So ito talaga yung pangunahing roles and responsibilities ng isang teacher ang maging isang role model sa kaniyang mga estudyante. The teacher serve as positive and powerful to their students. Huwag magpakita ng mga negativity sa mga estudyante at huwag paghinaan ng loob. Laging mag-effort sa pagtuturo para mas ganahan mag-aral ang mga estudyante lalo na sa mga elementary. Paano ba maging very good model sa ating mga estudyante? So ang sagot, acts as a positive role model for students. To improve yourself bilang isang modelo ng iyong mga estudyante, i-assist mo yung sarili mo. Tanungin mo yung sarili mo. Can my student appreciate and model the value of learning through my interaction with them? Students always see your action and statements that show the importance of learning and exerting effort to learn. Next, the second domain, learning environment. The domain of learning environment focuses on the importance of providing for a social and physical environment within which all students, regardless of their individual differences in learning, can engage the different learning activities and work towards attaining high standards of learning. So sa pagtuturo, mahalaga din ang learning environment upang mas epektibo yung pagtuturo ng isang teacher. Kinakailangan yung classroom sapat ang laki sa bilang ng estudyante at hindi daanan or dinadaanan ng mga ibang estudyante upang para makapag-focus yung mga estudyante. Para ma-achieve natin yung domain 2, create an environment that promotes fairness, makes the physical environment safe and conducive to learning, communicates higher learning expectation to each learner, and establish and maintain background knowledge and experience. So dito sa create an environment that promotes fairness, ask yourself, do I create a social environment in my class where my students feel that they are treated fairly? Kung sa tingin mo favoritism ka or hindi ka fair sa iyong estudyante, baguhin mo yung sarili mo. Sabihin mo sa sarili mo na kailangan all my student always feel respect and appreciate in class, and that they all have an equal opportunity to learn and to achieve. Number 2, makes the physical environment safe and conducive to learning. So, tanungin mo na naman yung sarili mo, do I create a physical environment in my class where my students feel that they are safe and able to learn? As a teacher, do your best para sa iyong mga estudyante with care. Responsibilities mo that all your students always find your classroom safe and conducive for different learning activities. Number 3, communicates higher learning expectation to each other. So, tanungin mo na naman yung sarili mo. Do I create a classroom atmosphere that encourage students to attain high level of learning and achievements? So, always motivate and encourage your students to pursue their own learning goals and aspiration. Kapag magawa mo na to, masasabi mo na, all my students are always motivated and given the chance to aspire and work for high level of learning class. Last one, establish and maintain background knowledge and experience. And again, ask yourself, do I create a consistent and orderly social climate and organization in classroom for my students? So, bilang isang teacher, kailangan may maayos kang samahan sa iyong mga estudyante. Dapat meron din kayong limitasyon as a teacher and as a student. Student always see how you highly consistent responding to their appropriate behavior in class. So, proceed tayo sa domain 3. Diversity of learners. The domain of diversity of learners emphasizes the ideal that teachers can facilitate the learning process and diverse types of learners by first recognizing and respecting individual differences, then using knowledge about students' differences to design diverse sets of learning activities to ensure that all students can attain appropriate learning goals. So, itong diversity learners, normal lang sa isang classroom na maraming differences ang mga estudyante dahil bawat estudyante ay may kanya-kanyang kakayahan at kahinaan. So, as a teacher, kailangan may konsiderasyon ka sa iyong mga estudyante. Igalang mo yung mga pagkakaiba-iba nila. Huwag masyado taasan ang standard mo kung alam mo sa sarili mo na mayroon kang estudyante na walang kakayahang gawin yung mga pinapagawa mong activities. Magplano ka ng mga activities na naaangkop sa kakayahan ng lahat ng iyong estudyante. To achieve the domain 3, familiar with learners' background, knowledge, and experiences. To assist yourself, kailangan mo na naman tanongin yung sarili mo, Can I help my students learn whatever their capabilities, learning styles, cultural heritage, socioeconomic backgrounds, and other differences are? Sa isang teacher, kailangan niyang kilalanin yung mga estudyante niya, anuman yung kakayahan or kahinaan ng kanyang estudyante, handa siyang punuan yung pagkukulang ng kanyang estudyante. Demonstrate concern for holistic development of learners. So, tatanungin mo na naman yung sarili mo. Do my students feel that I am trying to help them learn whatever their capabilities, learning styles, cultural heritage, socioeconomic backgrounds, and other differences are? So, iparamdam mo sa mga estudyante mo na magkakaiba man sila ng kakayahan or learning style, handa kang tulungan sila bilang iyong responsibilidad sa kanila. Next domain, Domain 4, Curriculum. The domain of curriculum refers to all elements of the teaching-learning process that work in convergence to help students attain high standards of learning and understanding of the curricular goals and objectives. These elements include the teacher's knowledge of subject matter, teaching-learning approaches and activities, instructional materials, and learning resources. So, yun nga ang curriculum ay tumutukoy sa lahat ng elements of teaching-learning process na ang curriculum ay pabago-bago dahil ang layunin nila ay upang mas madaling mag-improve or ma-develop yung learning ng isang bata. To achieve the domain for curriculum, demonstrates mastery of the subject, communicates clear learning goals for the lessons that are appropriate for learners, makes good use of allotted instruction time, selects teaching methods, learning activities, and instructional materials or resources appropriate to learners and align to the objectives of the lesson. Sa pag-assist ng sarili, hindi talaga mawawala yung pagtatanong sa sarili. So, ito yung dapat mong itanong sa sarili mo. Do my students see how well understand the subject matter I am teaching? Enough that they understand and appreciate the importance of the lesson? Ipakita natin sa ating mga estudyante kung gaano tayo kahusay or nagsisikap na maunawaan nila yung ating tinuturo sa kanila, and make sure na yung tinuturo natin ay naiintindihan nila ng maayos. The subject matter is deep enough to allow you to design lesson that motivates your student and engage them in higher order thinking. Communicates clear learning goals for the lesson that are appropriate for learners. Can my students see and appropriate the value of the curricular goals and objectives I have set for the different lesson in my class? So, bago ka magsimula sa iyong discussion, mas magandang sabihin mo muna yung objectives mo sa topic na ituturo mo nang mas mapadali nilang intindihin yung discussion mo. Nang sa ganon, the student understand the learning goals that you have set for them for all lessons. Makes good use of allotted instruction time. So, am I able to help my students attain all the curricular goals within the time provided in the school calendar? So, bilang isang teacher, kailangan marunong ka sa time management. Araw-araw, kailangan mong makamit yung objectives mo sa oras ng iyong klase. Kailangan mong masunod yung curriculum para maiwasang may ma-left ka sa iyong tinuturo. Plan for efficient learning activities that allow your students need to attain high learning goals. Selects teaching methods, learning activities, and instructional materials or resources appropriate to learners and aligned to the objectives of the lesson. Do I use teaching learning activities and learning resources efficiently to challenge my students to meet high levels of mastery and understanding of curricular objectives? So, sa pagtuturo, hindi puro discussion lang. Para iwas umay, kailangan magplano ka din ng mga activities na appropriate sa iyong topic. Always able to align the learning activities with learning objectives of all your students. Next domain, Domain 5, Planning, Assessing, and Reporting. The domain of planning, assessing, and reporting refers to the aligned use of assessment and planning activities to ensure that the teaching learning activities are maximally appropriate to the students' current knowledge and learning levels. In particular, the domain focuses on the use of assessment data to plan and revise teaching learning plans as well as the integration of formative assessment procedures in the plan and implementation of teaching learning activities. Sa pagtuturo, bago ka pumunta ng paaralan, kailangan planado mo na yung gagawin mo sa buong araw ng klase mo. And from the word assessment, para tiyakin na ang mga estudyante mo ay natututo din sila sa iyong tinuturo, kailangan mong gumawa ng mga assessments, example activities, quiz, exam, project, at kung sa tingin mo may hindi nakakahabol sa iyong pagtuturo, dun ka magplan ng iba or ibahin mo yung mga strategies na ginagamit mo. So, to achieve the Domain 5, Planning, Assessing, and Reporting, communicate promptly and clearly to learners, parents, and superiors about the progress of learners. Develops and uses a variety of appropriate assessment strategies to monitor and evaluate learning, monitors regularly and provide feedback on learners' understanding of content. To assist yourself para sa Domain 5, ito yung mga questions na makakatulong sa iyo para ma-achieve yung Domain 5. Do I provide my stakeholders, learners, parents, and superiors timely and accurate information about my students' learning progress? Do I assist my students' learning and knowledge using appropriate educational assessment procedures and use the information from these assessment procedures in planning my teaching learning activities for the students? Do I provide regular feedback to each student about their level of learning? So, bilang isang teacher na nagtuturo sa mababang antas o elementary or secondary, ay kailangan mo ina-update yung mga magulang ng mga estudyante mo, yung mga batang pasaway sa loob ng klase, mga batang hindi nag-aaral ng maayos. Kailangan malaman ng magulang para matulungan din silang disiplinahin yung kanilang mga anak. Provide regular and accurate feedback to all your students about their learning attainment in class. Sa number 2 question, ibig sabihin, kailangan mong suriin araw-araw ang mga estudyante mo kung may natututunan ba sila sa iyong klase. Gamit ang educational assessment procedures like oral recitation or iba pa. Always use results of varied assessment procedures in planning and implementing teaching learning activities for your students. Sa number 3 questions, do I provide regular feedback to each student about their level of learning? So, always magbigay ng feedback sa mga estudyante, yung mga quiz and exam paper nila, kung maaari after i-check at i-record yung exams nila or quiz, ibalik sa kanila para malaman nila yung mga pagkukulang nila or yung mga mali nilang sa quiz. Provide regular and appropriate feedback to help all your students monitor their own learning progress. Next domain, community linkage. The domain of community linkages focuses on the ideal that school activities are meaningfully linked to the experiences and aspirations of the students in their homes and communities. Thus, the domain focuses on the teachers' efforts directed at strengthening the links between school and community activities, particularly as these links help in the attainment of the curricular objectives. Sa pag-aaral, kailangan din ng iba't ibang experience, hindi lang experience sa loob ng classroom or school, kundi kailangan din ang mga experience sa labas ng paaralan. Maaring mga activities sa isang community na mapagkukunan din ng learning and experience. establishes learning environment that responds to the aspiration of the community. For the last domain, which is domain 7, personal growth and professional development. The domain of personal growth and professional development emphasizes the ideal that teachers value having a high personal regard, concern for professional development, and continuous improvement as a teachers. So bilang isang teachers, professional teacher, kailangan continuous lang yung improvement mo bilang isang teacher na nagtuturo ng mga estudyanteng may kanya-kanyang ambition sa buhay. Pinagkakatiwala ng magulang ang kinabukasan ng kanilang anak sa teacher. So bilang isang teacher, wag lang tayong makontento sa knowledge na meron tayo dahil malaki yung expectation sa atin ng mga estudyante natin. So, to achieve the domain 7, meron tayong tatlong rules. First, takes pride in the nobility of teaching as a profession. So, para tuloy-tuloy yung development mo as a professional, kailangan continuous din yung learning mo. Ang pangalawa, build profession links with college to enrich teaching process. So, kung meron ka mang mga hindi alam, huwag kang mahihiyang magtanong sa mga kasamahan mo dahil part na yun ng learning mo, ang magtanong. So, number 3, reflects on the extent of the attainment of learning goals. So, bilang teacher, alam mo yung kung hanggang saan yung kakayahan mo bilang isang teacher, kung hanggang saan mo kayang impluwensyahan yung mga estudyante mo. Always feel the responsible for the effects of your teaching practices on your student level learning. That's all. I hope meron din kayong natutunan sa aking discussion. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuhu.